Hello, welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors, first video of 2025. Happy New Year. Obviously, we're going to get back on the XV750, Tom Hurley's build. I've been slowly accumulating parts for this, or I should say Tom has been, and sending them directly to me. Thank you, Tom. We've got tyres to go on, we've got discs, we've got a few other bits and pieces, we've got foot pegs to go on as well, which is going to be one of my first jobs, is basically getting the foot controls all sorted out. So the big jobs here are sorting out a gear linkage, because the gear shifter would be front facing on the stock bike, and if we flip it round it will be 1 up and 4 down instead of obviously your 1 down and 4 up as most motorcycles are. We could live with that, but it would be nice if we can make up a linkage to avoid that. Then on this side over here, we've also got the fact that this is changing from a drum brake to a disc brake with help of that Cognito Moto rear wheel, which means that the whole brake pedal setup needs altering. One, needs to be changed just purely aesthetically, but two, it needs to now operate a brake master cylinder, which it didn't before. Before obviously a drum brake, it would just be operating a rod. So there's a few jobs to be done. And then obviously also mounting up the foot pegs. We have this sort of foot control rear set kind of portion of the bike that I need to modify, cut it up a little bit, make it look a bit prettier, but then also obviously get the foot peg mount sorted up, pivot for the gear linkage on the other side, and also there's a few holes in this that were drilled by the previous owner of this bike to mount some foot pegs that will need filled up as well. So yeah, a bit of aluminium welding to be done, which I'm excited about. I've been doing lots of practicing, so I hopefully will be a little bit more comfortable and confident doing that. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna take one of these off and get basically chopping sections of it off and try and make it look nice. And then if we make one look nice, we can get the other one to match. So that's a sort of rough shape there. Obviously cut off this back portion, cut out the lugs up here. Much more aesthetically pleasing to my eye. I can then think about a setup for mounting the new foot pegs. Not only that, but once I've done that kind of finishing work of making sure that they've got foot peg mount, I can then return to all these cuts and obviously neaten them up, get the rasp out and sanding and things like that, and make it look more like it was intended to be like that. But it's a vast improvement even just by cutting those sections off. Right, next thing I want to consider is the operation of the rear brake master cylinder. So there really isn't space in here for this to go that would allow the actuator arm to operate correctly, mainly because of the big bolt for the swing arm pivot. So was going to go for a sideways mount down here, somewhere around there, so that obviously if we cut this like actuator arm off and move it round to the bottom, that would do the same job. So that would be probably my best course of action. Leaves plenty of space for a hose, plenty of space for the pipe to the reservoir. Can mount a little reservoir behind here or something, just to try and keep it out of the way. So I think that's probably the best option. So with that kind of in position there, I'm going to mark roughly a section I need to cut out. That's probably one of our, well, probably our best bet here. Right, annoyingly ran out of argon there, so I haven't managed to make a proper job of this yet, but they're tacked on at least. Started welding this one and then my argon ran out. This one's just got 3 tacks on it. But in essence, the brake master cylinder is mounted to that rear set. So I can think about how I'm going to basically take the actuator arm on the brake lever itself around the back, cutting this off and repositioning it, and that will basically allow me to actually operate this with that arm. And the good thing is that's made of steel, so I can MIG weld it. Okay, we've got a working foot brake now. Obviously, master cylinder, brake pedal, and then we've also got the little actuator that we moved. The brake pedal is probably still going to be shortened a little bit, but that's okay. The leverage involved in operating this master cylinder is a lot less than the leverage involved in operating the drum brake that was on it. So happy enough with that. Obviously we ran out of argon, so we'll need to finish all that welding, but yeah, we can get around to that at some point. The next thing to think about are the foot pegs. So Tom's chosen these sort of proper motocross dirt bike style adventure pegs. The obvious place to kind of mount them would be, you know, on that bar or on that bar, but that bar is going to be too high, that bar is going to be too low, and probably why the previous owner made a plate that screwed onto here that they then mounted the foot pegs onto here. Now obviously I'm getting rid of that because it just wasn't a very neat solution and it looked a bit kind of DIY basic. But we do kind of want this peg to be roughly in the same position that it was, probably maybe slightly further forward, which basically means we're going to have some kind of supporting section in the middle of here. So probably making that out of aluminium, obviously, to be welded into this foot plate. Yeah, best thing to do I suppose is get a bit of cardboard, start cutting some shapes and see what looks nice. Right, so this sort of hourglass insert here, made out of, what's that, inch? 3/4 inch, something like that. Bill aluminium. So that will go into there and it will get welded along all the seams I'll ground the edges so I get really deep penetration into the weld. But it is supported either way, above and below, by the casting. So that should be very, very strong once it's all welded up. Obviously I've not got any argon right now, so I can't do it just now. But the next thing to think about, obviously, for mounting pegs is a little kind of housing for the foot peg sort of flip mechanism to fit into. So made this little cardboard template, obviously. So these pegs will sit roughly kind of there. And I'll be making these out of steel with a backing plate and a bolt, which will have a hole drilled through there, and that can basically get, you know, bolted to this from behind, so that that's nice and strong steel. And to do that, I'll probably be using just some mild steel angle iron, a couple of sections of this to make up that shape. Not overly complicated, but it should be exceptionally strong when it's done. Okay, so I welded that little box up, and then I sort of smoothed it all off, and I've drilled an 8mm hole through the middle of it, which basically will mean that the foot peg, line it up, gets bolted into that and can fold up and down. The only thing I want to do next is make a little platform here, probably out of weld, that I can then adjust, which basically allows the peg to sit flat. But I kind of don't really know roughly what angle I want that to be at yet until this is mounted onto the bike, so I'm not worrying about that just yet. But holding this up to the sort of foot plate can give me a better idea of where the actual foot peg is going to go. Okay, as goes with a lot of custom building, this little insert that I made, although it's you know, it's nice, it doesn't really marry up very nicely with the angles that this is going to have. So unfortunately, I'm probably going to remake this. Sorry, I've got enough aluminium to do it. But what I've done is I've just cut out a cardboard template here which fits in, and then I'm just going to sort of play about roughly with this position. And if I can get a nice position there, then what I can do is mark this out and then draw the shape I want for the infill afterwards, which is probably the right way to have done it in the first place, but you know, you live and learn. So that's obviously the foot peg, gonna go roughly here-ish, probably a little bit further forward, something like that. I think that'll look pretty cool. So yeah, not much further forward than that, somewhere around there. that's probably where I want that, to be honest. Just filling in this entire section, and then this shape here kind of mimics the shape of the whole piece. And then the peg will sit there, which is a little bit higher as well, which I think will be quite nice. Yeah, so it's frustrating, but I'm sure I'll find a use for that aluminium at some point. But that's now my template, so I need to cut that out of my 3/4 aluminium. And yeah, I'll do that off camera. It's pretty much the same process, just using the bandsaw to cut that, and then I'll need to get some argon before I can weld all this up anyway. So, you know, nothing I can do right now anyway. I have managed to get some argon, and what I did was I went ahead and welded the blocks into place. I've also done the other side, just a sort of mirror image kind of idea. So the foot pegs are now mounted up nice and solid. Obviously, I've not tightened the bolt at the back, clearly, but you get the idea. That is now all welded into place. The next plan is to dress all this down, dress all the welds in the front of these castings to make them look like one casting piece and not something that's been welded into it, just as a sort of aesthetic thing. We've got the Breakmaster cylinder all welded up now as well, so that mount is solid. Yeah, pretty happy with the result, to be honest. I'm getting much more comfortable with my aluminium welding, so yeah, that is quite satisfying, and you know, adds a lot of complexity and maybe, like, I don't know, another level to my builds, being able to fabricate a bit more out of aluminium. And like I've said before, this bike's going to have a lot of it, so that will definitely be pushing me to further those skills. So yeah, without further ado, going to get masked up, get some hearing protection in, and just start dressing these welds down. Various different files, power files, sanders, DAs, etc., to make these look, you know, as factory as I can. Okay, so I spent a bit of time smoothing those welds off there. Could maybe go a little bit finer, but not sure what the coating is these are getting yet. They could be getting powder coated or painted, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but you get the idea. That now looks more or less like part of the original casting. Yeah, obviously we made these little foot peg kind of mounts. We've got a little locating hole with a locating dowel, so that when they go in, they don't rotate. And then we've got a nut to go on, like that. And then these go on. That's all mounted up. Obviously, this is basically the arrangement. I've got a proper cotter pin and a spring on the way to put that on properly so that it's kind of spring loaded, but you get the picture. Right, I'm going to wrap this up here. We've got the foot pegs mounted, and it was a lot of work. We obviously also have the brake master cylinder mounted, but we've got some plans to change up the brake pedal and the gear shift. So the gear shift on that needs linkage made up and a different shifter pedal mounted up as well. So there's, again, quite a bit of work on that. And we're also going to probably modify this, definitely going to modify this, make this a little bit more enduro scramblery kind of style, rather than just the big clunky classic 80s foot brake that it is currently. However, I'm pretty chuffed with that result. Like I said, getting a bit more practice with my aluminium welding, which is, you know, going to be helpful for the rest of this build. But yeah, it's good to be making progress, and it's good to get an episode out. The first one of this new 2025 new year. So yeah, hopefully get back into the swing of it with regular content updates, and that will keep you interested in this build as it progresses. Anyway, as usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. I appreciate all the support. Take care. Goodbye.